Good afternoon, good day, and welcome to today's webinar.
Afternoon, my name is Dan Mkosa. I'm the advisory lead at Biotechnologies Africa. I'm also the chief product owner for our product called ESO, Electronic Strategic Office.
And I'm Towela Mokosa, and I am from BI Technologies Africa, a digital transformation company based in Johannesburg, South Africa. So the purpose of today's webinar is we are here to tell you about best practice when it comes to strategy execution. We're very excited because this is the third webinar that we are hosting. And last week, a lot of talk was around how strategic priorities can be tracked and monitored. That was actually the focus of last week's webinar. There were a couple of questions that came out from the webinar. I must say, I like the engagement that we're getting from the audience and the people that are joining our webinars. They send us questions afterwards or in the chat. So that actually keeps us motivated that the whole purpose of this webinar is really to educate and give people more knowledge so that they can go back and implement some of the best practices that they learn from this webinar in their organizations. So one of the questions that came out from last week's webinar, I wrote it down here, and it was around why strategies fail. So a lot of the themes that were coming out, because we did talk about it in our last webinar, but it really was around why strategies are failing, but specifically around the initiatives, right? So that was what the whole theme was about. They were like, yes, we understand, you need to have a checklist, but strategies are still failing. In fact, I would like to just read a statistic here. And it was by two gentlemen by the name of Robert Kaplan and David Norton, and they developed the Balanced Scorecard. Balanced scorecards are used in organizations globally. And in their research, they found that there was a high percentage of companies that fail, specifically when it comes to strategy execution. I'll just touch on four of them, and then we'll discuss them as we go along. Is that okay? Okay, so the first one was vision barriers, and it said only 5% of employees understand the strategy. Okay. And then it was people barriers, where it said only 25% of managers have incentives linked to their strategies. And then it also says 85% of executive teams only spend less than 1 hour per month discussing the strategy. And lastly, they said 60% of organizations don't link their budget to their strategy. Dan went in length on that last one. So maybe the first question I would ask is, from your experience, Dan, you've implemented a lot of strategies across the globe. And when it comes to why strategies fail, if you can maybe just talk to us specifically around the initiatives. So we've heard strategies do fail, but what are some of those best practices for driving initiatives so that strategies don't fail?
Thanks, Toa. I think what is very interesting is the statistics. I even think those statistics are pretty good. I think they are looking at global and first worlds. I think the first world strategy is taken seriously. And when I say taken seriously, it's not that it's not taken serious in Africa, but they take it seriously enough to commit. And the commitment and the discipline is actually key to getting it successful. I think from my experience in Africa, at least from the clients I've had, strategy has really been a tick box exercise. Although that said, at the development stage, it becomes the key document, the key runway for the organization to grow, to have business continuity, to overcome the disruptors. So it's interesting that at the time when you're developing strategy, usually the focus is really there, it's really strong. People take breakaways. I've done so many of them in development. When it comes to execution, we created a checklist last week. I'm not going to go through it so that we just focus kind of what came out really strongly from last week, from the conversation last week, is the implementation. So I think one of the things which came about was, but this thing, how does it even get implemented and where does it really fall when you talk about implementation? So forget about all the things on the governance, the dashboarding, the allocated of resources and stuff. How does an initiative fail? Because that's the level where the strategy actually starts going, I guess, astray. So look, I think I've got five points on how the initiatives,
Yes.
which are the drive of the strategy. Without the initiative, there's no execution, right? It's just a good strategic document. The first one is that we don't treat strategy or we don't give it the respect to add the science in implementing it. What that means is that we don't give it a framework, a methodology on how we're going to implement. What tends to happen is we develop a beautiful document, have the pillars, have the key objectives, and probably have some decent KPIs. Then we just give it to line functions. And what I've found, just looking at the client who we've helped with strategy execution last year, or part of the last 2 years, was people don't know what to do to implement strategy. So, and it starts from, they don't have a method. They get these strategic initiatives, these strategic documents, and they just don't make sure it happens. We'll track the KPIs and then report at the end of the quarter or half year or end of the year. So the first element of where we struggle is that we do not put a science to the strategy. Why do we not do that? Knowing very well this thing is important. Knowing very well that when we put effort to everything else, all the operations have got some form of operating model. How come the strategy doesn't have one? So that's number one around where the strategy fails.
So before you go to the next one, so the best practice, if someone wants to take away what you've just said, is they need to take it seriously and they should actually apply a method to execute their strategies. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So just like you have any other method to get some form of output or deliverables, do the same for strategy.
Okay.
And have it simple, because already people by nature, people are just going to go straight into operations. Try to see if it in any way fit into how people operate. Then you'll find that the inertia to actually implement the strategy is minimalized. So that's the second thing, that it has to be, the strategy execution has to be simple enough to almost fit operations. And if it can fit operations, beautiful. That's even excellent. That's number two. Number three, tracking and monitoring. So we come up with the strategic objectives, and probably departments, business units, divisions come up with the initiatives. Who's tracking and monitoring? How do you even track and monitor? What exactly do you track and monitor? So I think the third part, which usually people struggle when it comes to the initiative, is the tracking and monitoring of the initiative. So the initiative usually will have an identity, meaning it will have a name. It will be, we're doing customer centricity in the, I don't know, in the digital space. So it has a name, but then what are we tracking? Do we just track the output? How do we track that is progressing, that there's actually traction being made? Do we have the KPIs? Do we have a plan with key milestones? Do we have a dashboard which tells us where we are, what is the key steps, what are the key things we need to worry about? So that's number three. Number four to that is continuously updating the initiative. These initiatives need to be updated the way you update your normal day-to-day functions. And what tends to happen is that we don't have the discipline to just update them. We don't look at what risks have been generated by the initiatives. We don't look at the trends which will affect the strategy, impact, and also the frequency. I believe as a minimum, you should be updating your initiative once a month. There's no reason of waiting at quarterly and stuff. This thing is gonna, at some point, if this strategy becomes successful, it becomes operations. And at operations, people are gonna be hired or they're already hired to drive it on a daily, they show up at work. As a minimum, it requires a monthly drumbeat where information is actually updated. Then the fifth one is early warnings. So when we are tracking, we don't want to track for FYI. Like, so what? Already at the strategy level, it's almost FYI. If you listen to the strategy, the statistics you gave where you said only 5% of employees probably will even be aware. That feels like it's optional to even know. What we want to do with early warning is we want to be able to understand what the strategy risks would be, what are the key activities we're doing which can affect the strategy execution, what exactly decisions we need to make based on trends, based on developments which can negatively, maybe even positively affect the strategy. So you need to anticipate upfront and not wait for the review to act, wait for the 1-year review. That's already too late. In this VUCA environment, which we talked about the last 2 sessions, you need to act immediately. So you need some markers which indicate to you to say, hey, hold on, the fuel tank is going to run out. Maybe you need to go and put some fuel. Or say, hey, hold on, it looks like you might have a slow puncture. You can still drive for those people with run flat tires, but we've understood that the pressure is actually dropping. As opposed to I have a puncture and I'm stranded and I need to change it, right? So the idea of getting to that stage of understanding and operating your strategy is very important. Those to me would be like the 5 things you can take out which really help you drive your initiative with very good discipline.
I'm just thinking now from what you've just said, I guess the reasons why strategies are failing at those alarming rates is because especially on the early warnings, right? So if you're not leveraging tech, you know, how are you, and you can update information, you can update an Excel project plan but if there's no intuitive or cognitive intelligence to help you with those early warnings, I mean, you talked of trends, you talked about early warnings on risks, early warnings on the key activities. A technology tool will help you with that, I think. And if companies can start leveraging on tech, AI is a big thing right now. If they can just start leveraging on tech, they will have access to these early warnings that will help them, I think, also talking back to I think it was the 4th point you raised where you said continuous updating.
Yeah, so having the frequency, making sure you understand the dynamics which help you.
Yes. So if you've got those early warnings, it goes hand in hand with you frequently updating, you know, your initiative. So, and being able to continuously update it. I think you did recommend once a month minimum, but I think with early warnings, it might even happen more regularly. And you might find that the moving the needle of the strategy actually takes into effect. So Dan, when it comes to the initiatives for best practice. You've given us 5 things. What else can you take us through or maybe show us in action how a company can really track their initiatives so that they can really make an impact on the strategy that they're trying to achieve?
I think before we go into just displaying, maybe just thinking through kind of what exactly do we advise our clients, right? A couple of things stand out for me.
Advise them on what, Dan? Maybe just clarify that a little bit.
Clarify what exactly?
You said what, before we go into the tool, you want to talk about advising our clients. Is it advising them on the initiative or?
Yeah, I'd not
just
finished. I was
break
trying
it down?
to explain to say when it comes to implementing the initiative, right? So instead of going to just really just deep dive and come and say, look, it doesn't matter if you got a tool or not. I think what is important to me is you can't control what you can't measure. You can't improve what you can't standardize. And you can't, understand what you don't actually know. And what tends to happen in the organization is, Torella, do I still have you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, sorry. What tends to happen in the organization is that we drive strategy blindly without necessarily understanding, and our way of looking at strategy is through the reviews. So one of the things we did ourselves to make it easy is, first of all, we standardized the way we implement strategy. So we created it and it just followed the basic project management life cycle where you literally have a project come from kind of initiation to kind of close out. The only thing probably you add on the strategy is kind of where you do the benefit realization, because the initiative can finish, but the benefit won't be realized immediately. They could even take years. That's why some strategies end up going longer. So the basics is that you have the basic kind of project management information, and it means that anyone who can run a project can actually drive it. That's the first thing. Then the second one is where you come and say, look, let's find a way of updating this information without necessarily creating inertia. So the way we've done it is kind of threefold. So there's a way where you can update the information by literally going manual and updating it. And then secondly, where it actually reads from some form of shared folder with updated minutes. And thirdly, it can kind of anticipate. Anticipation is a bit difficult because you need to be connected to some form of ERP system, some form of system which is predating the information to update it for it to actually be meaningful. We do accommodate that through obviously the enterprise kind of arrangements we have with clients, but generally the simple basic one is that somebody can actually just update it themselves as and when information comes, as like it's basic information, and it updates the initiative, which then goes through the intelligence to also update the strategic view, progress, performance, and also the risks, which we did kind of last week. So if you don't mind, I just want to just share so that I can just show people kind of what we're talking about. But what I'm talking about can be done, and you could do it in Excel and stuff. It's a lot of work, which people generally do. So we've obviously made it very simple where we have one version of the truth. It's transparent. Anyone can update it, and you don't need to be a certified project manager and stuff, because the tool already takes you through the different stages and stage gates of the implementation of the project, helps you think through those stages, and then you actually helps you with kind of the different assessments, which allows you to move from one stage to the other. It already does that. So assuming that has been done and we're actually tracking the project, what does it look like? So I'm just going to share quickly my information. Just tell me when you can see it. So I'm not sure. Where are we now? Cool. On my side, it's saying it's sharing. Can you see anything?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Brilliant. So let's go to the initiative. So this is our platform. So this is the third time we're here, so people should start getting familiar to it. We have an overview page, which is the page you see. This is your landing page. We call it the executive summary page because it gives the executive everything they need to know about their strategy, from the statistics of the strategy, the spend, the commitment, the discipline, which is the compliance, and also the actual performance, all in one page, nicely summarized. Kenway can do the magic for all the strategic reviews. But let's say you are one of the people who's now more interested in kind of the initiatives themselves. So if you look at this table, we have an initiative table, which generally will be a portfolio table in projects. It's just that perhaps it's a portfolio table with a lot of Red Bull and a lot of information curated to drive strategy, to track strategic initiatives, which contribute to the strategic impact. So on the top part here, you have the different columns. You literally, from a summary perspective, you can track whatever you want. We pretty much have about 27 columns, and all these columns depend on the information which is made available. If you make the minimum information available, I think you end up having only 7 columns. But we've had very good clients who've come and said, look, we want to track end-to-end strategy execution, and we've been able to fill in the 27 columns. But as an initiative driver, say a project manager, a portfolio manager, a strategy lead, or a strategy consultant, you are able to choose what you want to track at any given point. So we have the different columns, and as I can say, you can pretty much add whatever you want to the columns. I mean, I can add forecasted spend, and it will probably pop up forecasted spend. You can see it there. I can remove it at any point, and it also saves it. So my setup for observing and monitoring and tracking, which does both, stays, and you can change and chop and change as when you want. What's important about it is we talked about the early warnings. You can see we have some red flashes. So the specific matrices which are in red and are flashing generally create an alarm. An alarm comes up through at the top part. We discussed it on the overview page. You will see it run through. And if you don't want to see it anymore, you click and you can acknowledge it. When you acknowledge it, it stops showing. We discussed it yesterday. But you can always look and track who clicked it. So you see, I clicked it right now, the budget variance, it was showing 0.5, and it shows who the person who actually clicked it. So you can't hide and come as I didn't see the early warning. It shows, or it will keep running. Going back to the initiative page, so we do have different alarms on different matrices. We have the side, along the project life cycle. Where is this project? Is it in planning, monitoring, execution? I'm tracking that. I'm looking at the percentage completion. Obviously, if we're still in planning stage, the percentage completion is not that great. So we are able to track, we are able to see the specific KPIs which are popping up and telling us exactly what we need to focus on when it comes to the initiative itself, when it comes to, if you put it in normal terms, day-to-day operations, project execution and delivery. So it's 2 of them at the same time. So the other thing you can also do is that you can go to initiative and print report. The reports are instantaneous, are continuously be derived at any point for any initiative. If I click view, it gives me a good summary of that initiative. The percentage completion, the budget, the information, the sponsor, the management, the admin staff is there. It tells me timelines, the key timelines of the project. It tells me the financial performance of the initiative, the matrices around productivity and driving. So the productivity or the driving of the initiatives, it tells me about the different stage gates, the performances, the areas that performed very well, the user requirement, the readiness to be executed, the business case. I can deep dive in any of these ones to go and look to say what exactly was the detail around it. Strategy-wise, it's got two objectives. We're performing at 60%. I can expand to see what are the strategic initiatives, what are the performance areas. It gives me that expansion nicely. The risks, remember here, we're not tracking the risks on the initiative, we're tracking the risks on the strategy. So it tells me there's one risk here. Again, I can expand, it's been mitigated. It shows, sorry, not mitigated yet. So it tells me it's medium. It tells me the responsible person, the email, and when it's actually due. And at the bottom, it tells me the strategic drivers. The team, there are two team members, one is active. Can give me details of the teams driving the project. So we've got the KUF team here. If I go down, it tells you who's involved in the KUF team. It tells me if this initiative is part of a program and the details around that program. So meaning, is it a part of other initiatives which create a program, a cost-cutting program, a growth program, a customer improvement program? I can expand it. It will tell me the different other initiatives which are contributing to that program. And if any of those programs, and one of the initiatives in the program has got a risk, it sends notifications to all the sponsors to tell them part of your program, one of the initiatives sponsored by Dan Mukosa is got a risk. Please discuss with them to escalate. So that's one of the things. You can print the report, talk about printing, you can print it anytime, you can export it, Excel, PDF, CSV, whatever format you want, PDF, everything. You are able to actually see the initiative at any point. So we don't need to wait for a review. Very convenient, and every sponsor or every executive will have access to it as long as they're in the platforms. One of the clients, in fact, for one of the clients, the ones we talked about, to say they didn't have a framework, they literally don't have a strategy review because this thing is functioning, it's running continuously, and they can report on a monthly basis on their initiatives and consolidate them without a problem. The other things you can do around the initiatives, you can update them. So we've got an update which looks like meetings, which allows us to update the progress. It allowed us to tell us, put the status, forecasted end date of the initiative, the actual spend, project completion. So it's the manual input. If you have the information, they are stored on a shared drive, we can get it automated where it updates them as the project is being updated. So if you have daily project meetings, this will be updated daily to actually, update the dashboard so that the executives have the most informed information. But knowing very well that usually that's not usually the case, because we don't even put methodologies to it. We've created a simple minutes, you can put comments and stuff, and the risk, and then it will be updated automatically on the risk. If I press submit for a meeting, it tells me, should I proceed without a risk assessment? If I say add a risk, it takes me to adding a risk, which we did on day one of the webinar, but we can discuss it later. I don't want to go into it right now. I'll go back. So we are able to update it as and when information is made available, and anyone can update it. You don't need any skill. A project administrator can actually update it, and it actually updates the dashboards and all the information and all the risks. That's the thing you can do. The other thing you can also do is assessments. You can go click the assessments, and it allows you to assess the project. Again, I think we did it on day one, or we'll do it, I think, in the following projects, following weeks going forward, Towela. But we can update an assessment at any point. So if your project has got a business case score of 70.63, and you have governance and organization, which generally one of our clients, the one I was talking about, requires you to have a score of 85 on each assessment, minimum of 85. It means you have to do the assessments every time you go and address the corrective actions from the previous report from the assessment. But here it is 70.63. It will pop up as an alarm. It will be a notification as an email, and it will also go as a notification in the sponsor step to say, look, the initiative's case was really weak. That will really compromise it. So you could update it with the assessment. And then there's also updating the initiative itself. So the key things, you can change the sponsor, project managers, you can change key things around it, you can change the strategies, you can change the initiative plan, start date at any given point, and in case there are delays, you can change the budget allocations. All these contribute and help you have an updated, transparent initiative portfolio which you are running. If you think about it, all we've done is we've gotten a normal portfolio management and put some Red Bull on it. The only thing which it won't have the typical portfolio is schedules. The reason why you don't shoot schedules is that you're not driving them as project, but driving them as initiative, and we care about the so what of the initiative. But if a client is insistent to say, look, the schedule wants to be where we should read the information or use it to update the platform, we are so glad to work with them. We are flexible enough to talk to their schedules. But all we do here is track the progress as a percentage. It simplifies the tracking of the initiative and the objectives in the initiative. Generally, Tawela, that's what you do. And then you can filter. If you want, you can filter the information you want. You can filter by the name, and it just shows the name of the initiative. You can filter the team, so you can see the projects which the team is. You can filter the programs. So if you have programs, let's say cost cutting, it will only filter the projects which are related to cost cutting. As you can see, if you've got a team specifically, so I create a filter. There's a team, I want to just look at the initiative driven by that team. I choose the team, so business productivity team. That's the project they're doing, and that's the initiative. Just to help you with just what the information you want to see. And yes, even this page, when you have this page, you are able to export it. You can export the whole page as an Excel. It will come in. You can see the information. What is it displayed in an Excel table. So you also don't need to have a special report for your portfolio. And then as I showed you, you can deep dive into the different portfolio. What this does, it simplifies strategy tracking. This is the engine of the strategy itself, the strategy execution. So we've moved away from the planning, the development to now what is the strategy execution. And these are the initiatives driving the strategy, which we can track and monitor to make sure that our strategy is being driven. I'm not sure, Tawela, if there's any comments, questions, anything you want to add to what I've actually said. You can also use the cases for the clients we've actually onboarded already.
Yes, so I just want to say that for some clients, I think where the challenge comes in when they are trying to execute on their initiatives or drive their initiatives is the visibility. In terms of just having a holistic view of the performance of all their initiatives. I think that's something that a lot of clients, once they started using a tool, or even when they use it, for example, Dan mentioned Excel, just being able to see your initiatives in one place and the status of them is actually very powerful, because that's how the monitoring actually works. I think the discipline is also very important, meaning have the discipline to actually monitor these initiatives. Go into your Excel, your Power BI, your Jira, wherever it is that you've captured your initiative, and monitor it. Just track, when was it last updated? How are we doing on our initiative in terms of, are we on track? Have we gone over budget? where are we in that project life cycle? Like, where are we? Are we still in the monitoring phase? Are we in the planning phase? We've been in the planning phase for a long time. What's going on? When are we moving into the execution phase? So I think that's all I just wanted to add, was that just being proactive and having a one-stop place to go in and actually view your initiative and actually see how it's performing in real time is a very powerful thing. And it's something that we've seen our clients appreciate. Anything you want to say, Dan?
I think, look, I've added, I think you can see, I think for the people who track and monitor strategies, this is something probably they appreciate the most, that the fact that they can, because you don't need to be the project owner, you don't need to be the initiative owner or lead, but having interest in strategy allows you to track, and it's on one platform in the palm of your hand. You can actually see, you can access it, you can look at it. Now with digital platform, you can literally print it from your phone. If you want to, at any point, just print the report for any reason, for any review you actually need, and also escalate matters. Beautiful thing to actually have.
Absolutely. And also what's nice about being able to actively track your initiative is that whenever any of these KPIs change, notifications, as he mentioned earlier, notification gets sent to a project sponsor, and that then becomes an alarm, which then is shown on your overview page. So as you log into your platform, you immediately have these alarms that are warning you in terms of any of the KPIs that have changed, which is actually part of driving your initiative. So just to close off, I just want to recap. So thank you, Dan, for taking us through these initiatives, how you can drive your initiatives. But just to try summarize, for you to take some nuggets back to the office, here's what we are saying today. We said why strategies fail. And then we just focused on what are some of the best practices when it comes to driving the initiative. So follow a method, just have a method, have a plan, stick to it, be disciplined so that you can follow it and execute it. The second thing was track and monitor, very important. Have a dashboard that you can use to track, have a plan, a project plan. Let the project plans be standardized across all your initiatives so that the standardization comes across and it actually helps when it comes to the information is the same across all initiatives, and that you're able to track things effectively. Then we talked about having dedicated teams and roles within these projects. So, have your project sponsor, your project manager, the executor. Yes, there will be a strategy champion, but have clear roles when it comes to the initiatives and when you're executing these initiatives. Have early mornings, very important, so that you can be proactive. And lastly, frequently update and monitor your initiatives frequently. Best practice was a minimum of once a month. If you want to do it earlier, you can, but at least a minimum, track these initiatives at least once a month and continuously update these initiatives. Have the discipline to update. I think that's where we don't talk about it because it's very high level when we say all the strategies fail. But I think one of the biggest, from my experience and from what I've seen when we implementing strategies at our clients, it's discipline. Discipline is very, the lack of urgency is another one. People don't have the lack of urgency because they don't have the visibility of the strategy. So to them, they'll focus on, you know, what's in their KPI or what's the burning issue at that point. But just having that discipline to frequently update the information, having the discipline to frequently view and review the information will actually make a very big step change when it comes to seeing the needle move in your strategies. Other than that, thank you so much for joining. We're so grateful. We see a lot of people joining us from all over the world. We really appreciate it that you could take time to actually, gain more knowledge on how you can execute your strategies effectively. So thank you so much for joining us, and we shall see you again next week where we have our last segment on strategy execution best practice. I'm Toela from Biotechnologies Africa. Thank you and bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.